Hello there. What is going on, everybody? We're going to talk some battle forces today and what they could bring to the game beyond just their new mechanics, but I'm also talking about new units that we might see accompany some of these new battle forces that are coming out. If you guys are new here to the channel, we are still giving away a $25 Amazon gift card. We do giveaways all the time. There's also some giveaways going on Patreon and on Discord right now, too. So if you're interested in any of those, there's links in the description below. But to enter to win the giveaway for the Amazon gift card giveaway, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. And big thanks to today's sponsor, Luxury Playstyle. Be sure to check out luxuryplaystyle.com. Save 15% off of those amazing tokens by using code Crabbok VIP. Don't forget that code. It saves you well, and you get a free lightsaber and nunchuck token if your order is $35 or more or not. It's awesome. It's awesome. All right, so battle forces. What are we talking about today? Well, Star Wars Legion is getting very, very close to having the Shadow Collective finally show up. We're getting looking at like mid-June possibly for the Shadow Collective, and that's of course going to bring about a unique battle force made up of kind of scum and villainy type units led by Darth Maul, Mandalorians, Black Sun, the Pikes, bounty hunters are going to be restructured into mercs, all this cool stuff, and you know, all of these can go in certain factions or maybe only certain battle forces. Of course, before the Shadow Collective launches, we are going to be getting other battle forces available for all of the existing factions, which means, you know, of course, Rebels are getting Echo Base, the Empire's getting Blizzard Force, Republic's getting the 501st, and the Separatists are getting the Droid Invasion, which I believe is supposed to be based off of Episode 1, The Invasion of Naboo. Because if it was just droids, well, then that wouldn't be much of a battle force, because that's pretty much, I mean, that's most of what the Separatists are to begin with. So what are these new battle forces going to bring to the existing factions? Because I think by knowing the direction they're going with these battle forces, it gives us a pretty good hint on future units that might show up. And you know, since we just recently got Gar Saxon kind of leaked as you know, the next unit that's coming to Shadow Collective, and since he's not in this box, or at least he's not featured on the box art anywhere, it makes you know, I think it makes for a reasonable assumption to see a battle force, whether it's the Shadow Collective battle force or any of the other 4 battle forces that are starting out with these factions, to say, well, there's probably going to be more things that come to this battle force over time. You know, it's kind of like the same thing they do in Marvel Crisis Protocol, where, you know, you've got the X-Men, but then they add more X-Men into the X-Men, and well, we've got you know, this unit, we've got the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and we've got more people that show up for that. We got the Avengers, we got more people that show up for that. So since we have all these other factions, I thought I'd talk about a couple of ideas that might that I think are, you know, some reasonable, some less reasonable, some more reasonable, that we may get for the future of Star Wars Legion. So I want to talk about Blizzard Force first. And I know I do. I know we're looking at some at walkers here, some AT-ATs, and I feel like they're on the less reasonable side. But I still wanted to give them a nod because, again, Blizzard Force, you think of these guys. So is it possible that Blizzard Force will pave the way for AT-ATs to eventually show up into the game? I think you know, I think they would definitely, that's definitely possible, but I don't think that they will be like a normal unit. I feel like you sort of already have AT-ATs in the game in the form of General Veers' 1-pip, which is that kind of that long range fire support, but I feel like it could they could show up in a couple of different ways. It could be a terrain piece, or they could just be so bold as to actually give you an AT-AT, and it might be a very expensive piece, but I mean, it might have some unique rules, and I think it'd be really fun to do. It might be difficult to actually pull off, and may not even be legal for tournament play. I feel like if you were going to actually put this on the ground as an actual unit, maybe, just maybe, it would be better off for a grand army or for a specific scenario, right? And it could make for a really fun scenario. I think grand army is probably the better way to go, because this way it's a format that people can play like if you make a scenario for this, then a lot of people will just be like, well, I just won't play that scenario, or people might get tired of playing that one specific scenario. And so if you make it to where it goes into a grand army, like maybe it's 801 points, right? Or maybe it's 800 points, or it doesn't even have to be 800 points. But if it's a high enough point value that it doesn't allow you to fit your 3 core or other required units in there, then it won't be legal. So if they made it like 700 points, for example, you wouldn't be able to fit it in a standard Imperial army. So something like that could potentially work for something like this, and that of course would then make it legal only for Grand Army play. So I think that that's a possibility, but I'd rather, I talk about AT-ATs all the time. Of course, I want to see these guys on my tabletop, but I feel like they're probably better suited for just a different Star Wars game. Maybe a Star Wars game that has smaller miniatures, that's a kind of a bigger scale and allows for like the complete Battle of Hoth or Battle of Crate, or any of these really, really large battles, which would be really fun to do also. So if that ever comes out one of these days, of course I'm going to cover it. But I think what's more likely for Blizzard Force is the Probe Droid. Now, the Probe Droid practically writes itself with all of the different mechanics that we've seen lately, especially with the Spider Droids having self-destruct. We now have mechanics for self-destruct. We've got mechanics for units to hover. Whether it be jump or hover air, we have mechanics for that. We've got droid specific mechanics, whether it be for the Separatists and all of the droid mechanics they have there, or Imperial droids. Iden Versio has a little, her ID10 droid as well. So there's lots of mechanics for droids, the way Ion affects them, hover mechanics, self-destruct mechanics, and also observation tokens, which is something likely that a probe droid might do. Plus, they already have lots of concept art and a lot of art done for probe droids, because probe droids were in Imperial Assault, and they would fit perfectly into Blizzard Force. So I feel like there has never been a better time to, develop and release and announce some probe droids coming to Star Wars Legion. Just simply because of the fact that we're getting Blizzard Force. So this is, and of course this doesn't have to be the only faction they can go in. And that's when I think that a lot of these units that I'm suggesting today don't have to be exclusive to only the Battle Force, but I think they should go in the Battle Force as well as in normal armies as well. And I think the probe droid and the AT-AT too. I mean, for that matter, an AT-AT can go. We also had AT-ATs on Endor, for example. They use AT-ATs on a lot of planets, so like that could work anywhere. It wouldn't have to be unique to Blizzard Force, but yeah, I think the probe droid is kind of in the same boat. We see different types of reconnaissance and probe droids all throughout almost all of Star Wars, and I think this is a perfect example of something that absolutely should come to the game. Almost everything that you would need to make it work. Incognito is another keyword. It could totally be incognito, right? A lot like Maul's probe droids. So, yeah, it's just one bigger unit, and it could be bigger. It could be bigger than a trooper, too. I feel like it would go on a single trooper base, but, I mean, it could make it a little bit bigger if you wanted to. I don't know. But I think it definitely works. I think it practically sells itself. These would fly off the shelves. Moving on to the Rebels, we have Echo Base Defenders, and I feel like this one is a little bit tricky in some cases, because a lot of what we see from the Echo Base Defenders force in Empire Strikes Back is already in game. But I chose this particular image because it does demonstrate something that I kind of view as important when I think about this battle force. Is that something I would love to see is Rebel pilots. Right, we've got so many of these, Rebel veterans, or the Hoth troopers, or what are now Rebel veterans, but we don't have Rebel pilots on the ground, with the exception of that limited edition Luke Skywalker, which we are going to be giving away very, very soon. Again, that giveaway is still going on. If you check my my video for how to build Legion miniatures, we're talking about that one in there. Again, Luke Skywalker is the only pilot we see on the ground, and there's so many named pilots, especially named pilots from this battle, whether it be Hobby or Dak or of course Wedge Antilles would be fantastic, right? And I feel like they could do them somehow in a way that's kind of like Inferno Squad, where you could have just a unit of Rebel pilots that are like maybe doing stuff, and they can also have their own heavies that they can go into. Like maybe Wedge can go kind of lead a unit of Rebel troopers. Like that would be really cool. I'd love to see that. but like what would they do, right? They're much better in their X-wings and their Y-wings and so on and so forth. So what do you have your rebel pilots do? And I always thought like they usually, if they're downed, like maybe they're waiting for a strategic pickup, or I feel like they kind of work with objectives a little bit more. So maybe they're like a type of core, or they, of course, you could make them special forces as well. But I could see them being like a type of core that has some kind of special interaction with objective tokens. Like maybe they get a free objective action, whether it be a claim or moisture evaporators or something like that. Maybe that's something that they can do. They probably have a shorter range pistol. Maybe they're just like a range 1 to 2 ranged weapon. And maybe they're a little cheaper, but that could be like one of their claim to fame is they might work really well with certain objectives because that feels to me like something they could do. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I know at least thematically it'd be really cool to have a lot of these dudes on the ground. Not that much, but some of them. It'd be pretty nice. It'd be pretty cool to have some Rebel Orange on the ground. But now more likely, how about General Reichen? I think General Reichen is somebody that has certainly been suspected of showing up to Star Wars Legion. I think he is somebody who is definitely likely to show up for Star Wars Legion as a Rebel commander. We do have, the Rebels do have some fairly cheaper commanders, but maybe he's going to be something more like a Veers, who he's more of a support commander, but in the offensive side as opposed to the defensive side, whereas Leia is very defensive, handing out dodges. Maybe Reichen is the first commander who's really going to hand out aims and do that. Or maybe it's not even aims. Maybe he's offensive in a different way. Maybe he can grant units a keyword or something like that. Like, hey, you get marksman, for this round or something like that. Or maybe he does something altogether totally different. Maybe they decide to show us a side of Reichen that we didn't know existed before. But he's certainly a recognizable general. If we look at what he does in other games, like he exists in Star Wars Armada, and that he can kind of help preserve and make sure somebody doesn't die until the end of the round, kind of like how emergency stims work in Star Wars Legion. He could potentially do something like that. He'd like say, get in there and keep on fighting, fight through the pain or something like that. And he could allow a high value unit to ignore some wounds, or at least for the, at least temporarily. So I feel like that could be something that he does if you wanted to kind of mirror what they do across games. So that's a kind of a cool idea. Moving into the Clone Wars factions, we do have the Droid invasion. Now, a lot of this stuff is also already in the game. The Battle of Naboo is one of the most iconic Clone Wars battles, and so as a result, that a lot of that stuff got put into the game already. But we do have these multi-unit, these multi-troop transports. The really, really big transports. Now, this is the thing that this big circular section opens up. It shoots out the big racks and drops all of the B-1 battle droids onto the field. This one is a little bit on the less likely side. While it is recognizable, it is iconic to a degree, but at the same time, it's big. It's real big. I feel like if you're gonna get this, you might as well do, like, if they're gonna do an AT-AT, then maybe they'll do this and maybe an ATTE or something like that. Like they'll just see more big vehicles, or maybe it would be a whole new unit type. Maybe it'd be ultra large, or something bigger than a heavy. If heavy is kind of like ATST snowspeeder and maybe AAT at the biggest, then maybe this and ATATs, this opens the door up for like a super heavy. And I feel like we could maybe see that. Maybe super heavies, and that's how you do it. Maybe super heavies are only legal in Grand Army or in certain scenarios, right? And if every faction has a super heavy, maybe that's a way to make that work. I think that could be cool. You could get juggernauts for oh my gosh, there's a lot you could do. The Rebels would probably be the only people that have a really hard time with a super heavy. Maybe they'd have to get like the Millennium Falcon to fly in and like shoot some stuff on the ground or something like that, or call in like Y-wings for like bombing support or something like that during the middle of a battle. I don't know. The Rebels don't really have a super heavy, and I'm okay with that. It's okay if everybody's not completely symmetric, but this is something that could potentially work, and I feel like there's a lot of keywords for this already. Plus, it's got the guns facing forward. It's already got its fixed front armament. Not only do you see these in this battle, you also see them in Star Wars Battlefront marching down the streets of Theed, and like you're trying to take your pot shots on it, and it's very heavily armored. and in a lot of ways functions similar to how an AT-AT will function in a game. So I feel like it's, the functionality is there. So if you can design one, then you can probably design another one. But this also could have a new type of transport. Like we see, what we got: open transport, closed transport, we got light transport, but they always have that number 1. What if this was closed transport 2 or closed transport 3? Right, like it can drop like 2 units of B1s. I think 2 is probably with the best, most reasonable thing you're gonna get. But what if it could drop 2 units of B1s? Maybe it was enclosed transport B1 specifically, like it only can do B1s. You can't drop B2s because we don't see it drop super battle droids, at least in the movie. Maybe it did in one of the stories that I'm forgetting. But I feel like that could be a fun thing that you could do with a vehicle like this, is have it be kind of like a mega carrier. It's like maybe the armament isn't super strong, but if it gets to where it's going, it's going to drop a whole bunch of droids directly on you. And maybe it has some kind of special ability where after it drops them, they get to activate, like they get a bonus activation, or they get to activate right away, right? So that could be kind of a fun thing to make it like a power bomb. Not a wrestling power bomb, but like a bomb with power. Never mind. But yeah, it could be something. Now, again, it is pretty big. So what's more likely? What I think is more likely is that we get not Pong Krell, but that we get maybe the Neimoidians from episode 1, like specifically Newt Gunray. I feel like Newt Gunray could potentially show up. Again, he's pretty iconic. Now we do have the hostage miniature already in game, but that's not necessarily Newt Gunray, so I think they could do a Newt Gunray as a Trade Federation commander. He could have some kind of maybe command cards, or maybe he's got a special ability that's like all of your forces lose AI. Since he had the control ship in orbit when he was fighting, so he had the control ship running all the droids, and they didn't need to be managed or something like that. Maybe he has some kind of ability to do that, or maybe it's just a command turn. Maybe he just gets it for one turn. Like that could be a fun thing for him to do. But maybe he's got some kind of vengeance keyword also, because he really wanted to go after Padme. He hated her so bad. He was hiring. He wanted her dead. He was doing throughout the movies and in the Clone Wars animated series. The dude just really had a vendetta against her. And what if vendetta, like that's actually a great name for a new keyword. What if he had a vendetta? So basically, like if he dies, if he gets killed, then you get to put a bounty on whoever kills him, and you assign that bounty to anybody else in your army, whether they are bounty hunter or not, right? Like something like that. Cause you'd be like, oh, maybe I don't want to kill him. There's gonna be a price to pay if I kill him, so like that could be kind of a cool thing that he might do. So he might even change his play style so that he goes out into the open a little bit more, and you're like, or maybe he walks into minefields and stuff. But if a mine kills him, then not a unit killed him. So it'd be pretty interesting indeed. All right, so Pong Krell. Why do I have him up here? Because we're getting the 501st for the GAR, for the Galactic Republic. The Republic has the 501st Legion that's coming in. A lot of that stuff we already have in game. We've got Anakin. We've got, we have rumored. We have Ahsoka already confirmed, and she'll likely would be able to go in there. We already have Rex. We already have clones, phase 1s, phase 2s. We got ARC troopers. We got a lot of the stuff that's already, canonically known to be in the 501st. Well, I feel like Pong Krell leans a little bit more on the unlikely side because of the fact that he is a little bit of a jerk, right? Maybe that's an understatement. Pong Krell is a bad dude, and I always kind of wanted him to be more of a separatist. Well, first off, let me explain why I think he has a potential place in the 501st, because he was given command of the 501st in his episode. So if you watch his little series on his story in the Clone Wars, he was kind of this really, really cruel commander and was ordering the clones into, like, giving them terrible orders, getting a lot of clones killed, being mean to them, making them turn on each other, and then they finally realized he had fallen to the dark side and he was actually working for the separatists or something like that. He was really, just trying to cause chaos and then, become Count Dooku's apprentice. Now, what I find so interesting about this is I really wanted him to, while he has, you could make the case to put him in the 501st. You'd have to Maybe give him a flaw card. But I don't necessarily think a flaw card would be good enough to talk about just how evil this dude was, because we never really see him as a good guy. You kind of meet him once he's already turned to the dark side. So it depends on if they want to just be like, well, here's how he would have been if he hadn't turned. And so you could kind of do him that way. But I think it'd be more likely that he I'd rather see him as a separatist that has some kind of traitor mechanic, whether they just give him incognito. I think it could be a different way to play incognito. Like he's going to sneak up and try to get behind enemy lines. Maybe he even has infiltrate and incognito, so he can sneak behind enemy lines and then kind of betray you, and like he reveals it on his own. And so I think that would be a kind of a cool way for him to work. But what if they did him as a dual faction pack? They give you a Republic card, a Republic way to run him with a flaw card, or a full-blown traitor separatist way to run him. As the fallen Jedi seeking Count Dooku's approval. I would really like that, because another reason for that is just that separatists don't have that many Force users available, at least if you compare them to the Republic. The Republic's got lots and lots of Jedi to pick and choose from. Now, I don't think we're at the point where we're gonna see, like 20 or 30 Jedi show up for the Republic. We only have 3 right now, with a 4th with Ahsoka kind of on the way, and that's still pretty cool. But there's still a lot of other Jedi that I want to see, like Mace Windu and Kit Fisto. There's a lot more that I'd like to see show up. And I guess we do have a couple more, like Plo Koon and Aayla Secura, available in field commander format. But I want them on the ground, right? So, there's just not as many. You still have some that they haven't done yet. You've got Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress and maybe Night Sisters, if you want to kind of, if you want to call their upgrades magical, or if you want to just be tied to the Force, I could see that also happening. But there's not that many. Not that many Saber users, not that many Force users for the Separatists when you compare them to how many are available to the Republic. So I think he just makes a perfect addition to Separatists. So maybe we see Pong Krell as a dual faction pack for the 501st. And what I think is maybe a little more likely, although it's a little bit, I'm digging a little bit deep here, is Sergeant Oppo. Sergeant Oppo is, featured in Pong Krell's episode. So if we're going for 501st, Sergeant Oppo got promoted to commander in the 501st, so he could potentially be a commander. Or again, be kind of like Fives and Echo, and have his own card that can also be a heavy weapon for individual units. Plus, he's super cool because he's got he's got the arrow, right? For like Aang from Avatar: Last Airbender, if you guys are familiar with that. Another Dave Filoni inspiration kind of went into this dude's helmet. So very cool. Also, he was also featured in Episode 3. He's the guy who goes and tells Bail Organa, it's time for you to leave, sir. And so, he does kind of fall in line with the 501st after Order 66. He does kind of fall in line with everything. But he was a good soldier up until that point. And so I feel like Oppo is somebody they could do. He's certainly got experience fighting Jedi, and that could maybe be something that kind of goes into his character. Maybe he if he's a heavy, maybe he gives Jedi Hunter to his unit, right? Like, that's a cool way to, look, they have no Surge, but now if you put him somewhere, they've got Surge to crit, but only in very, very, very specific circumstances. And I think that could be a really cool way to do it if he's in the 501st. So, I don't know, that could be a fun way to do it. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree with any of my predictions on what battle forces are going to bring us? I think there's a lot of potential, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for Star Wars Legion. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this all possible. Like always, I always say something silly, so make sure you water your grass with either a hose or magnificent jelly beans. But if you plant them, they might grow into a beanstalk, so don't climb it, because you never know what might be up there.